Ask yourself this: why do smart, successful men still get destroyed in love? Why do men with money, power, and discipline still end up cheated on, divorced, or used as backups? It's not because they're weak, it's because they're blind. Blind to the 4 brutal truths women live by but will never confess. And if you don't face these truths, it doesn't matter how strong or successful you are, you will lose in love. But the moment you understand them, everything changes. In this video, I'll reveal the 4 brutal truths that women will never admit, but every man needs to hear before it's too late. If you think you already know everything about women, this video will test that belief. I've worked with men who swore they understood it all, until these truths crushed their assumptions. Subscribe right now, like this video, and tell me in the comments, are you open to having your illusions shattered? Because the first truth I'm about to share will challenge everything you thought you knew about love and commitment. Number 1. In many relationships, women judge your future, while men must judge her past. Most men step into relationships blind to this brutal asymmetry. Many women are wired by nature to scan forward. They look at you and silently calculate, can he provide stability? Can he navigate storms? Will he protect me and elevate my life, or will he collapse when pressure arrives? For a woman, a man's romantic past is often irrelevant. A man could have dated 100 women, and in her eyes it can prove he has experience, social proof, and a sense of status. His history can become an asset, not a liability. But men, you do not have that same luxury. For you, her past matters deeply. And it is here that too many of you stumble, because you are told to ignore it, to be progressive, to not judge. Yet a woman's history is the greatest predictor of her future with you. A woman who has cycled through chaotic relationships, who has built a trail of broken commitments, who has treated intimacy like a hobby. These are not minor details. They are warning signals. Why does this matter? Because patterns repeat. A woman who struggled to attach before will struggle again. A woman who has lived in drama will unconsciously create it again. And if you ignore this truth, you will not simply inherit her affection, you will inherit her unresolved baggage. Think of it like buying a house. You do not just look at the shiny kitchen, you ask about the foundation. Was it flooded before? Has it been repaired poorly? Because if you do not, you will discover the cracks when they are already destroying your investment. A woman's past is the foundation. Ignore it, and you will build your life on quicksand. I have seen too many men learn this lesson the hard way. A man falls for charm and beauty. He convinces himself he is the one who will finally tame her chaos. For 6 months, everything seems intoxicating. Then the cracks appear. The late-night arguments, the unresolved loyalty issues, the endless comparisons to exes. Suddenly, he realizes he did not meet a partner ready for commitment. He adopted a storm disguised as love. The brutal reality is this: a woman's past tells you the truth she will never advertise. She will not hand you a resume of mistakes. She will not confess the drama she has created before. But those stories are carved into her habits, her reflexes, her triggers. You either read them carefully, or you end up paying the price for that oversight. Now, some men will object, but shouldn't we forgive? Shouldn't we give her a clean slate? Forgiveness is one thing, blindness is another. You can forgive her past and still recognize that it may make her incompatible for a future with you. Choosing to ignore it is not compassion, it is self-destruction. Let me make this clear. Your job as a man is not to judge her harshly, not to shame her, but to evaluate with open eyes. Is this woman's history aligned with the future you want to build? Or are you seducing yourself into denial because you are lonely? Most men who fail in love are not defeated by women. They are defeated by their own refusal to see the truth staring them in the face. And the painful truth is this: A woman's past tells you everything about her future with you. Ignore these patterns, and you risk paying a heavy price. That is not cruelty, that is cause and effect. So, do not approach women with naive hope. Approach them with discernment. Study her patterns, not just her words. Watch how she has treated commitment before, not just how she promises to treat you now. Because the man who filters wisely will save himself years of wasted time and endless heartbreak. Number 2, modern dating culture often creates inflated expectations. Today, it's common to see a belief that a woman deserves a king while bringing nothing but chaos to his throne. This is not an insult. It is a brutal observation that has been proven again and again in the modern dating landscape. Let's break it down. From a psychological standpoint, many women are wired to seek partners who can provide greater stability or status. This is a natural instinct to reach up, not sideways or down. In itself, it is neither good nor bad. It is simply human nature. The problem is when this instinct collides with modern culture, social media, dating apps, and a flood of attention from desperate men, and suddenly a person's self-perception inflates far beyond reality. Here's the picture. A woman in her late 30s, 2 children from previous relationships, still believes she can command the loyalty of a wealthy, high-status man who makes more than she does, is more competent than she is, and has no interest in raising another man's children. Why? Because for years she has been conditioned to think she deserves the very best. Every like on her photos, every message in her inbox, every man offering free attention reinforces the illusion. I am valuable no matter what. But value in the dating marketplace is not measured by likes or comments. It is measured by desirability and long-term viability. Harsh as it sounds, a woman's prime window of attraction often peaks in her early 20s. That is when beauty, fertility, and youth converge. Men, on the other hand, frequently peak later in their late 30s or 40s once they have built competence, resources, and status. So while a man's value can climb with time, a woman's tends to decline unless paired with exceptional character and loyalty. Yet this reality is often ignored. Some women believe earning a high salary offsets everything else. They think degrees and promotions make them more appealing to high-value men. But here's the truth. Men do not typically share their resources the way women do. A successful man will use his wealth to support his partner. A successful woman rarely shares her wealth in the same way. Her money is hers, his money is theirs. And this creates a brutal mismatch when she expects him to out-earn her just to qualify. I have spoken with countless men who run into this exact wall. They meet women who bring long lists of demands. Must be funny, must be strong, must be kind, must love her children as his own, must out-earn her, must be more ambitious than her, must carry the confidence of an alpha and the patience of a saint. Meanwhile, what does she bring? Baggage, obligations, and an inflated sense of entitlement that bears no resemblance to her actual position in the marketplace. This is why so many men end up burned out. They think if they just keep improving themselves, if they check one more box on her endless list, then she will finally commit. But that list was never meant to be completed. It was meant to keep you chasing, to keep her feeling like the prize while you exhaust yourself, proving you are worthy. And that's when the brutal realization hits. Her checklist has 200 boxes, and you, her plan B, are supposed to tick them all. That is not love. That is delusion. Now let me be clear. Not every woman has these expectations. Some understand their reality and adjust with grace. But the modern dating culture rewards the opposite. Women with inflated standards gain attention, validation, and a sense of power, even if that power collapses when faced with real commitment. For men, the lesson is straightforward. Do not negotiate with fantasy. If you find yourself with a woman whose demands outweigh her contributions, you are not her partner, you are her unpaid employee. And if you accept that role, she will never respect you, because deep down, she knows she has placed herself above what she can realistically command. You must flip the script. Instead of asking, how can I meet her standards? Ask, do her standards even make sense? Do they align with reality, or are they inflated by ego and external validation? That single shift in mindset will save you from countless wasted years. Men who thrive in love do not chase entitlement. They set boundaries. They recognize when a woman's expectations are incompatible with reality. And they walk away, even when she is attractive, even when she seems charming. Because a relationship built on delusion will always collapse under its own weight. And the cold, undeniable truth is this: modern culture often leads women to believe they are worth far more than they truly bring to the table. If you do not see it clearly, you will become the man who sacrifices everything just to prove you are enough, and still ends up discarded when she realizes she was chasing a fantasy. So, stop chasing impossible checklists. Stop negotiating with entitlement. Build your value as a man, not to impress women who cannot be satisfied, but to attract those rare women who see reality, respect boundaries, and are capable of genuine partnership. That is how you win, not by being her fantasy provider, but by being the man who refuses to play in a rigged game. Number 3, there are no perfect partners, only untold stories. The fairy tale lives deep inside every man. You believe somewhere out there is a woman untouched by chaos, immune to temptation, immune to betrayal. You tell yourself if you just search hard enough, you will find the perfect one, the flawless partner. But here is the brutal truth. That flawless partner does not exist. The only difference between someone who seems perfect and someone who seems flawed is the story they have not told you yet. Human beings are not blank slates. Every woman you meet carries a history, relationships, mistakes, choices, secrets. Some of those stories are visible, many are not. When you meet her, you only see the curated version, the polished highlights. What you do not see is the hidden archive. The late-night regrets, the impulsive flings, the questionable decisions she would rather erase. And because she knows these stories could ruin her image, she will not reveal them willingly. This is not cynicism, it is psychology. People present the best version of themselves to secure connection. But when men buy into the illusion of a perfect partner, they blind themselves. They believe her silence equals purity. They assume her lack of confession equals lack of past. That assumption destroys men, because when the truth eventually surfaces, and it almost always does, the betrayal cuts twice as deep. First, you feel the pain of what actually happened. Second, you feel the sting of your own denial. I once spoke with a man who built his entire life around a woman he swore was different. She dressed conservatively, avoided nightlife, and spoke about loyalty. For 3 years, he believed he had found the exception. Then, one casual conversation with one of her old friends revealed a side of her past he never imagined. Multiple partners in her early 20s, a reputation for drama, stories she had carefully hidden. He was devastated, not because of the past itself, but because of the illusion he had chosen to believe. The marketplace has changed. Social media, dating apps, endless validation. These platforms have given every woman the opportunity to curate a polished image. She can filter photos, filter stories, filter reality. But behind the curtain, the same dynamics exist. Attraction, temptation, impulsivity. They do not vanish just because she looks innocent. Let's be blunt. Stop chasing the fairy tale. There are no angels in the marketplace, only human beings with pasts they will not confess. Believing otherwise is not hope. It is self-deception. So what should you do? The answer is not paranoia. It is not interrogating her about every choice she ever made. It is discernment. Instead of asking, is she a perfect partner? Ask, what patterns are visible in her actions? How does she handle temptation? How does she handle responsibility? Because while the past cannot be erased, the present reveals whether she has grown from it or whether she is still repeating it. The mistake men make is assuming they need purity. What you actually need is consistency. You need a partner whose current behavior proves she is disciplined, loyal, and stable. If she hides, deflects, or lashes out when you ask simple questions, that is not a sign of innocence. That is a sign of stories she does not want you to discover. And the dangerous consequence is this. When you idolize the idea of a perfect partner, you blind yourself to reality. You hand over your trust without requiring proof. And in doing so, you set yourself up for the very betrayal you fear most. The woman you believed was different turns out to be human, flawed, imperfect, carrying scars like everyone else. The men who succeed in love are not the ones who find unicorns. They are the ones who accept that no one is flawless and who set boundaries that filter out destructive patterns. They do not chase illusions. They measure reality, and because of that, they are harder to manipulate, harder to blind, harder to break. So, stop searching for the perfect woman. She does not exist. Start searching for alignment between words and actions. Look for consistency, not perfection. And remember, every person has untold stories. The question is not whether they have a past. The question is whether you can live with it. Number 4. You may not actually be her first choice. This is the hardest pill for men to swallow. When she chose you, someone else may still have been on her mind, and in too many cases, that ghost never leaves. Psychologists describe this as an emotional imprint from a peak experience. When a woman once connected with a man who awakened her strongest attraction, whether through charm, dominance, or chemistry, that memory embeds itself deep in her psyche. Even if that relationship collapsed, even if years have passed, she can carry a lingering attachment to it into every new relationship. She may be with you in body, but part of her is still with him in spirit. Here is how it plays out. A man dates a woman, invests himself, commits fully. Everything seems fine on the surface. Then, in a quiet moment, he discovers evidence, a hidden message, an old photo she cannot delete, a comparison she let slip during an argument. Suddenly, he realizes he is competing with a memory he can never defeat. Because you cannot outshine a ghost. You cannot win against the pedestal she built for another man. This is not about paranoia. It is about reality. Many men enter relationships assuming once commitment is made, the past is erased. But a woman's feelings do not obey logic. She can agree to exclusivity and still long for the man who once stirred her deepest desire. And when that longing lingers, you are no longer her first choice. You are her safety net. Make no mistake, the price for ignoring this is crippling. A man who is not her first choice will rarely receive her full devotion. He will receive her compliance, her companionship, perhaps even her affection, but not her fire, not her deepest respect, not her unfiltered desire. Over time, this imbalance erodes him. He compromises, he concedes, he bends to keep her satisfied. Each concession makes him smaller, weaker, less attractive, until eventually she leaves, or worse, she stays and slowly destroys his confidence with quiet contempt. I recall a story of a man who discovered an email his girlfriend had written days after agreeing to exclusivity with him. In that email, she was begging another man to take her back, promising they would have beautiful children together, insisting they were perfect for each other. To the man reading it, the truth shattered him. He thought he was building a future with her. In reality, he was nothing more than a rebound, a placeholder, while she pined for someone else. And the brutal bottom line is this: if you are not her first choice, you will never get her best. You will only get what is left. And what is left will never be enough. So, how do you protect yourself? First, listen to your intuition. If something feels off, if you sense she is emotionally elsewhere, do not ignore it. Second, observe her behavior. Does she speak often about her past relationships? Does she compare you, even subtly, to someone before? Does she seem lukewarm in her admiration of you, like she is going through the motions? These are signs she may still be attached to another man. And here is the most important step. Never settle for being the backup plan. It is better to be alone than to build your life with someone who secretly longs for another. Because you deserve more than borrowed affection. You deserve a woman who sees you as her priority, not her consolation prize. The men who win in love are not the ones who tolerate being second. They are the ones who walk away when they realize they are not first. They refuse to fight a losing battle against a ghost. And because of that, they keep their self-respect intact, their confidence unbroken, and their standards high. So, do not waste years trying to convince a woman to forget the man she once adored. Do not bleed yourself dry attempting to prove you are better. If you sense you are not her first choice, step back. Because while you cannot control who imprinted on her heart, you can control who you give yours to. Most men lose in love not because women are impossible to understand, but because they refuse to confront the truths that are right in front of them. Over the last few minutes, you have seen 4 brutal realities. In many relationships, women judge your future, while you must judge her past. Modern dating culture often creates inflated expectations. There are no perfect partners waiting for you, only human beings with untold stories. And perhaps most painfully, you may not be her first choice, no matter how much she commits with words. When you put these truths together, the picture becomes clear. Love in the modern world is not about finding perfection. It is about seeing reality without filters. Too many men step into relationships blind, hoping to rewrite a woman's history, hoping to satisfy demands that cannot be met, hoping to be the exception in her story. That blindness costs them years of time, mountains of energy, and sometimes their entire identity. The men who win are the men who wake up. They stop negotiating with fantasy. They stop searching for unicorns. They stop begging for validation from women who were never invested in them. Instead, they set boundaries. They evaluate with clarity. They demand alignment between words and actions. They accept nothing less than being a woman's first choice. Now you see the code in the matrix. The question is no longer whether these truths are fair. The question is whether you will continue pretending, or whether you will finally play the game with your eyes open. If even one of these truths hit you hard, that means you needed to hear it. Do not keep it to yourself. Share this video with a brother who is still walking blind, who needs the wake-up call before it is too late. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because your story might help another man recognize his own. And before you leave, hit subscribe. Every week, we break down the hidden dynamics of love and power, so fewer men lose themselves in illusions. The world will not hand you the truth. These realities will not be confessed openly. That is why you must face them, accept them, and use them as weapons to protect your future. Because the only men who win in love are the men who refuse to play by lies. You think she left because she fell out of love? No, she left because she stopped feeling your strength. Every relationship has a hidden economy. Power and respect are the currency. The moment you stop leading, you start losing value. And it doesn't matter how much you provide, protect, or please. Once she senses weakness, attraction dies. In this video, I'll reveal the 10 most dangerous mistakes men make that cause this silent shift. These aren't random, they're psychological. And if you don't fix them, love turns into labor, and you'll end up working for a woman who doesn't even admire you. Every man deserves a reset, a chance to stop repeating the same emotional cycle and start leading again. If that's your goal, hit like, tap, subscribe, and comment one word below. Rebuild. Write it as a promise to yourself, not to anyone else. Because what we're diving into next isn't theory. It's the first step toward reclaiming the leadership you lost without even noticing. Number 1. The most dangerous mistake a man can make is mistaking love for labor. You think carrying the weight of everything means you're a good partner, that fixing, providing, and solving will earn her peace and loyalty. But here's the truth. If she's not cooperating, you're not in a relationship. You're in a one-man business that's slowly killing your energy. Picture this. You handle the bills, the plans, the emotional crises, even the smallest details. And she? She critiques, corrects, or simply scrolls while you burn yourself out trying to keep things running. You keep hoping she'll eventually notice your effort. But women don't respect exhaustion. They respect balance. When you do everything, you erase the need for her to contribute. You condition her to depend, not to partner. In psychology, this is called learned helplessness. When one side always carries, the other stops learning how. A woman without a teamwork mindset isn't cruel, she's conditioned. Society rewards women for receiving, not for building alongside. But as a man, if you accept that dynamic, you'll drown in silent resentment. The moment you start carrying her responsibilities, you stop leading and start serving. A healthy connection isn't about one person fixing while the other complains. It's about two people rowing in rhythm toward the same direction. The second she drops her oar, the boat starts spinning in circles, and so does your peace. Remember this: a relationship without mutual effort isn't partnership. It's emotional employment. And if she won't work with you, she's not building a life. She's borrowing yours. Number 2, you can't build something new with someone who's still haunted by what came before you. Most men don't realize this until it's too late, until they're trapped in a relationship where every moment feels like a comparison test they never signed up for. You meet her, she's charming, confident, says she knows what she wants. But as time passes, her words start to sound like echoes. Be more romantic. Be more dominant. Be more like... She never finishes the sentence, but you can hear the ghost in her tone. What she's really saying is, recreate the men who left their mark on me. That's not love. That's programming. Psychologically, every deep connection imprints emotional fingerprints. When a woman has had too many, too fast, too intense, she becomes less impressionable. Her responses aren't born in the present. They're triggered from memory. You can't teach her your rhythm because she's still dancing to someone else's beat. And here's where men lose themselves. They try harder. They adjust. They overperform. They chase after an invisible standard that was never meant for them, until one day they realize they've been auditioning for a role already played. Understand this clearly. You can't rewrite her past by performing better in her present. You're not her fresh start. You're her sequel. And sequels rarely end well. The right woman doesn't need you to compete with her history. She's ready to create a new one with you. And that's the difference between a woman who's still comparing and a woman who's still capable of being impressed. Number 3, peace at any price is the most expensive deal you'll ever make. Every man who's been in love has done it, swallowing his words, softening his truth, agreeing just to keep the calm. You tell yourself it's maturity, emotional intelligence, maybe even love. But deep down, you know you're not keeping peace. You're buying silence. Every time you fold when your values are tested, you make a silent trade, her comfort for your respect. And the moment she senses that pattern, she'll test you again, not out of cruelty, but instinct. Psychology calls it dominance testing, the subconscious way people check if their partner still has strength behind their softness. Fail the test enough times, and she'll stop seeing you as a leader. She'll start seeing you as a follower with good intentions. Women don't lose interest because men disagree. They lose interest because men dissolve. When you bend too much, you stop being a partner and start being an accessory, an emotional cushion, not a man with direction. True compromise isn't surrender. It's alignment. It's two people meeting at a middle ground that still honors both sides' integrity. But when you're the only one doing the bending, the relationship isn't balanced. It's built on your fear of conflict. And fear never earns respect. So next time you feel that urge to give in just to keep things easy, pause. Ask yourself, am I protecting peace or just avoiding tension? If it's the second, understand this. She may smile today, but she's already losing attraction tomorrow. Because no woman can truly follow a man who doesn't lead. Number 4. A woman who worships one trait will neglect all the others. Maybe she's obsessed with her kindness, but careless with her appearance. Or maybe she's flawless on the outside, yet her empathy is starving. Either way, imbalance is rot that starts slow. And by the time you notice, attraction is already dying. This happens because most people build identity through what psychologists call selective validation. They choose one quality to overdevelop, usually the one that earns them the most praise, while neglecting the rest. She tells herself she's a good person, so she doesn't need to stay disciplined, curious, or feminine. Or she convinces herself that beauty alone is currency enough to buy loyalty. The result? A woman who's lopsided, appealing in one area, hollow in another. You fall for her charm, but you end up dating her imbalance. Healthy relationships thrive on multidimensional attraction, intellect, warmth, physical connection, shared discipline. When any of these is missing, polarity fades. You start feeling like roommates, not lovers. It's not that she's evil or lazy. She's unbalanced, and imbalance always leaks energy. You can't build harmony with someone who refuses to maintain equilibrium within herself, because when she stops valuing the full spectrum, her mind, her presence, her emotional control, she won't value yours either. So stop rewarding imbalance. Stop calling it depth when it's just neglect wearing perfume. The woman who keeps herself whole, mentally, emotionally, physically, is rare, but she's the only kind worth building with. Remember, attraction doesn't disappear by accident. It dies the moment balance does. Number 5. Boundaries aren't insecurity, they're protection. Too many men have been conditioned to believe that setting limits makes them controlling. So they say nothing when their woman keeps a circle of just friends, men who text late, compliment often, and wait silently for an opportunity. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Attention is a form of currency, and women know its value. Every message, every like, every "you look amazing" gives her a dopamine hit. The more she receives, the less she values yours. That's not jealousy, that's neuroscience. Psychologists call it the external validation loop. It's the cycle where a person becomes addicted to outside approval to feel worthy. When that happens, no matter how loyal you are, you'll always be competing against her audience. You'll give her love, they'll give her novelty, and novelty always wins when boundaries don't exist. You can't build intimacy in a room full of witnesses. Every extra man she allows into her emotional orbit dilutes your influence. What starts as friendly support can quietly evolve into emotional triangulation. She begins comparing you to them, quoting their opinions, even borrowing their validation to measure yours. That's how respect starts to fade. Not because she stopped loving you, but because she started entertaining too many options that keep her ego fed and her standards unfocused. Set boundaries early, not out of fear, but out of principle. Make it clear that emotional exclusivity matters just as much as physical loyalty. Because if her attention is a public resource, your relationship is public property. You don't need to control her. You just need to protect the space where loyalty actually lives. In focus, in restraint, and in respect. Number 6. Men don't stop caring because they're cold. They stop because nothing ever gets solved. It starts small. A few complaints here and there. Then it becomes constant. Every conversation turns into a venting session. You listen, you try to fix things, but the same topics return like a broken record. And eventually, you realize she doesn't want resolution. She wants release. In psychology, that's called emotional looping, when someone keeps expressing frustration without ever identifying a root cause. It gives temporary relief, like scratching an itch that never heals. But for the person listening, it's emotional suffocation. Men are natural problem solvers. They connect through purpose. When there's no clear problem to solve, the mind shuts down to protect itself. That's why you stop feeling, not out of indifference, but out of survival. A woman who complains without clarity trains you to disengage. Slowly, your emotional reflex fades. You start going quiet. You say less. And she interprets that silence as detachment, not realizing she created it. The longer this cycle continues, the weaker the bond becomes. Because connection can't exist without direction. You can't repair noise. You can only step away from it. What you need is communication with intention. Calm, focused, solution-oriented. If she's unwilling to meet you there, you owe it to yourself to protect your peace. Remember, love isn't about endless talking. It's about solving, growing, and evolving together. And if every conversation ends in chaos, it's not a connection. It's emotional clutter. So when the noise gets louder than the love, choose silence, not as retreat, but as self-respect. Number 7. Love without respect is slow poison. It doesn't kill you overnight. It erodes you quietly. Every time you let her speak over you, mock your values, or test your patience without consequence, a piece of your self-worth dissolves. You tell yourself she still loves you. Maybe she does. But here's the truth. Love can coexist with disrespect, and when it does, it's lethal. Men often chase affection like it's proof of value. You crave her warmth, her words, her attention. And in that craving, you ignore the absence of respect. You think love is enough to fix it. It never is. Respect is the spine of attraction. Without it, love collapses into chaos. Psychologists call this dominance testing, a subconscious behavior where one partner pushes limits to measure the other's strength. When a man keeps forgiving disrespect, she stops believing in his boundaries. Once that belief is gone, attraction fades. Because deep down, every woman wants to feel the presence of stability, a man who stands firm, even when emotions rise. You can't build loyalty on love alone. Love is emotional. Respect is rational. Love fluctuates with mood, but respect endures through storms. That's why a woman may stop loving a man for a moment, but she'll never betray one she truly respects. Ask yourself, does she follow your lead because she trusts you, or because she pities your persistence? If she doesn't see your boundaries, she'll eventually look past you. You don't need to demand respect. You need to embody it. When you stop tolerating disrespect disguised as passion, something changes. She either steps up or walks away. Either way, you win, because you finally chose yourself over her approval. Number 8. You don't fit into her life by erasing yours. It begins with good intentions. She wants more, and you want to provide it. So you start adjusting, stretching, overworking, convincing yourself it's love. But what you're really doing is rewriting your entire existence to fit someone else's expectations. And the moment you do, you stop being a man she admires and become a man she manages. Many men fall into this trap when dating women whose lifestyles outpace their reality. They start chasing upgrades, new clothes, better car, fancier restaurants, not because they need them, but because she does. It's the illusion of compatibility through consumption. But beneath that shine lies anxiety, resentment, and exhaustion. You're no longer leading your life. You're financing someone else's fantasy. From a psychological standpoint, this is identity erosion. The man's sense of self begins to dissolve as he attaches his worth to what he can provide. And the irony? The more you give, the less she values it. Because abundance without boundaries breeds entitlement, not gratitude. The right woman adapts to your reality, not demands a new one. She doesn't need you to change your pace. She learns to walk beside you. But the wrong one will always measure love in upgrades, not effort. So before you bend, ask yourself, if everything stopped tomorrow, the money, the pace, the attention, would she still stay? If the answer isn't clear, it's not love. It's leverage. And leverage always breaks when the pressure rises. Because when she only loves your lifestyle, she's not in love with you. She's in love with what you can maintain. Number 9. Some women never stop dating. They just take breaks. You meet her when she's between upgrades. She's charming, magnetic, knows what she wants, or at least what she thinks she deserves. She's been conditioned to believe there's always something better, just one conversation away. And if you don't recognize that early, you'll end up loving someone who's always halfway out the door. This behavior has a name: hypergamy. It's not evil, it's instinct. The drive to seek the best possible option. But when that instinct isn't managed, it becomes addiction. Comparison becomes her drug of choice, and the highs of new attention make commitment feel dull by contrast. She craves the thrill of being chosen, over and over again, not the comfort of staying chosen. Psychologically, this is a form of dopamine dependency. Each new admirer resets her reward system, making stability feel like boredom. And you, no matter how loyal, grounded, or patient, can't compete with her craving for the next emotional spike. You'll see it in the small things: the subtle flirting, the endless scrolling, the casual curiosity about what else is out there. She'll tell you she loves you, but her behavior will say she's still searching. And the most dangerous part, she doesn't even realize she's doing it. You can't outgive hypergamy, you can't outperform it. The only cure is self-awareness. And that has to come from her, not you. So stop trying to prove you're the best option. The right woman doesn't need convincing. She's already decided. Because when she's done chasing upgrades, she starts building legacy. Until then, you're just the stop between who she was and who she hopes to attract next. Number 10. Forgiveness doesn't rebuild trust. It buries self-respect. Men often mistake forgiveness for strength. You tell yourself you're being mature, taking the high road, showing emotional control. But what you're really doing is teaching her that betrayal comes without consequence. And when consequences disappear, respect follows right behind them. You think forgiving her will restore peace. It won't. It will only reset the cycle. Because forgiveness without accountability doesn't heal anything. It rewires you to tolerate pain longer. You'll start rationalizing what should never be repeated. You'll call it patience, when it's really denial. In psychology, this is called avoidance coping. It's the mind's way of avoiding loss by surrendering standards. You'd rather absorb the pain than face the finality of walking away. But every time you excuse her behavior, you erode the foundation of what makes you a leader: clarity, consequence, and consistency. The brutal truth? Once trust is broken, love changes form. It becomes guarded, distorted, transactional. You'll smile, but it'll be mechanical. You'll touch, but it'll feel hollow. And in the silence between moments, you'll hear it. The echo of what you forgave but never forgot. Forgiveness only has power when paired with transformation. If she's truly remorseful, she'll rebuild what she broke. If she's not, you're just participating in your own decline. You can't heal where the wound keeps reopening. Sometimes the strongest move isn't to stay and repair, it's to leave and rebuild yourself. Because every time you forgive without a standard, you don't restore peace. You surrender leadership. And when a man gives that up, he doesn't lose her. He loses himself. Walk away not to punish her, but to protect the part of you that still knows what loyalty is supposed to look like. Every man thinks he's the exception, until he becomes the warning. You've now seen what destroys most relationships from the inside out. 10 mistakes, 10 quiet assassins of peace, power, and purpose. And the truth that ties them all together is simple. It was never about women. It was about you. About how much of yourself you were willing to trade away just to keep something that was never meant to be kept. You don't lose women because they're complicated. You lose them because you forget who you are while trying to keep them comfortable. You stop leading. You stop setting boundaries. You start negotiating your worth. That's how control slips away. Not in one explosion, but in 1,000 quiet concessions. The real danger in love isn't heartbreak. It's corrosion. The slow decay of masculine clarity. When you start tolerating disrespect, imbalance, or manipulation, you're not loving her. You're abandoning yourself. But here's the shift. You can choose differently. You can rebuild from strength, not scarcity. You can stop chasing connection and start commanding it. Women don't destroy men. Weak standards do. When you start demanding respect before affection, cooperation before romance, accountability before forgiveness, everything changes. You stop playing defense. You stop walking on eggshells. You stop living like your worth depends on her approval. You reclaim your peace. You rebuild your rhythm. You return to yourself. That's the kind of man women follow. Not because he's loud, but because he's grounded. Not because he controls, but because he leads. So if this message hit something inside you, if it woke up the part of you that's tired of giving without return, that's not anger. That's clarity. That's your standard waking up again. And when that happens, you're not losing anymore. You're learning how to win differently. If you felt this, it's time to move with intention. Subscribe. Share this with a man who needs to hear it, and stay close, because in the next video, we'll go deeper into how men rebuild trust after betrayal. Wondering, hoping, while she keeps you stuck in a cycle of almost interested, almost committed, almost yours. And that emotional limbo is exactly where she wants you. Because when a woman isn't serious, she won't tell you directly. She'll keep you close enough to use, but far enough to avoid responsibility. Most men don't see it until they're already drained. But you don't need to fall any deeper into her game. In this video, I'll break down the 5 signs she's playing you for a fool, so you can stop being used and start taking back control. You never fall into this kind of situation because she's extraordinary. You fall because the way she treats you plugs into something deeper, something you've ignored for years. Most men don't realize how easily they can be pulled into a woman's emotional game until they're already stuck in it. And it usually starts with one simple vulnerability: the hunger to feel chosen. That hunger makes you overlook the small inconsistencies. It makes you dismiss the hesitation in her voice, the vagueness in her answers, the way she keeps you close enough to taste her affection, but never close enough to claim it. You tell yourself you're being patient, you're being understanding, you're giving her time. But what's really happening is much colder. She's feeding you in emotional crumbs. Just enough warmth to keep you standing at her door, hoping the next moment will be different. And that's the trap. Women understand emotional patterns far better than men. You invest in straight lines. Consistency, effort, progress. She moves in cycles, attention, withdrawal, re-engagement. When those two collide, you end up interpreting her behavior through your logic instead of her strategy. She gives you a late-night compliment, a soft touch, a playful message. Your brain takes that hit of dopamine and builds an entire narrative around it. Then she disappears, and instead of questioning her intentions, you question your worth. You weren't blinded by her beauty. You were blinded by your hope. Hope is the most powerful blinder a man can wear. It makes you rewrite her excuses as compassion. It makes you accept inconsistency as complexity. It makes you protect her behavior instead of protecting yourself. You start believing she's misunderstood, overworked, emotionally wounded, anything that keeps you from facing the truth that she's simply not choosing you. And before you know it, you're trapped in a loop you can't name. You wait for her messages. You analyze her tone. You defend her absence. You explain away her mixed behavior because the alternative feels worse, admitting you're being played. But once you understand the psychology behind this dynamic, the next 5 signs become impossible to ignore. And each one reveals exactly how she pulls you deeper into a game she never intended to finish. Number 1. Emotional distance wrapped in flirtation. It always starts the same way, with warmth that feels intentional. She compliments you, lingers when she touches your arm, sends those late-night messages that make you think she's letting you into a private part of her world. She gives you enough sweetness to trigger possibility in your mind, enough softness to make you believe she's opening up. But the moment you try to deepen the connection, everything changes. She dodges vulnerability with calculated precision. When you ask a personal question, she redirects. When you share how you feel, she goes quiet. When you hint at defining what's happening between you, she suddenly becomes confused, not ready, or just seeing where things go. And if you listen carefully, you'll notice that the warmth she gives you is always emotional, surface level, nothing deep. Nothing revealing. Nothing that requires her to risk anything. This isn't an accident, it's a power structure. Flirtation becomes her currency, and your emotional investment becomes the return she collects. She knows you mistake chemistry for connection, and she uses that confusion to keep you orbiting around her. You assume the tension you feel means something meaningful is brewing. But she's giving you performance, not partnership. When a woman wants you, emotional depth comes naturally. When she doesn't, flirtation is just bait. The reason men fall for this dynamic is simple. You assume reciprocity. You assume that if she's showing interest, she must want something real. But what she actually wants is attention without accountability. Your desire boosts her confidence. Your availability pads her ego. Your consistency gives her emotional comfort with zero cost. She gets all the perks of closeness while staying completely protected behind a wall she never intends to lower. Pay attention to the signs. She avoids every conversation that might lead to clarity. She laughs off direct questions. She says she likes what you have, but refuses to define it. She enjoys intimacy, but rejects emotional presence. Everything she offers is suggestive, but never substantial. Just enough to keep you craving the moment she finally opens up. Here's how you see the truth. Stop feeding her emotional oxygen. Pull back. Not dramatically, not as punishment. Simply disconnect the emotional faucet she's been drinking from. If she wants something real, she'll meet you halfway without hesitation. She'll initiate deeper conversations. She'll show genuine curiosity about your world. She'll stop hiding behind pleasant ambiguity. But if she goes cold, fades out, or replaces flirtation with distance the moment you stop chasing, you'll finally see her intention for what it was from the beginning. Not love, not interest, not potential, but control. Number 2. She keeps other men in the conversation to keep you off balance. It sounds harmless at first. She mentions an ex who still texts sometimes, a coworker who won't stop flirting, or a male friend who gets her in ways most people don't. She drops these details casually, like she's just telling stories from her day. But if you listen with the right ears, you'll hear the intention behind every name she brings up. She's not informing you. She's positioning herself. Women don't remind a man they're interested in that other men are pursuing them. A woman who feels something real will actually do the opposite. She'll protect the connection. She'll minimize outside noise. She'll make you feel like you have her focus. When a woman keeps other men in the spotlight, she's using them as psychological leverage. Each name she drops is meant to spark one reaction inside you: insecurity. That insecurity makes you compete without realizing it. It makes you question if you're enough, if she prefers someone else, if you're losing ground. That heightened emotional tension is exactly what she wants. It elevates her perceived value and lowers your sense of certainty in the relationship. And once she creates that imbalance, she has the advantage. What makes this tactic effective is that it feels unprovable. She's not insulting you directly. She's not openly comparing you. She's just being transparent, just sharing, just talking. Meanwhile, she's testing how much you'll tolerate. Will you try harder? Will you chase more? Will you put in extra effort to stand out from the imaginary competition she keeps bringing up? Most men do. They step deeper into the trap because they want to win her attention back. But here's the truth you need to see. When a woman is genuinely interested, she removes competitive anxiety from the equation. She doesn't make you guess where you stand. She doesn't trigger your jealousy to get a reaction. She doesn't use other men as props in her emotional playbook. A woman who wants you will protect your confidence, not sabotage it. The test is simple. Stop reacting. Don't ask questions. Don't flinch. Don't give her the emotional spike she's fishing for. If she senses that her tactics aren't affecting you, she'll do one of two things: intensify the comparisons to get a stronger response, or quietly distance herself when the game stops being fun. Either outcome gives you clarity, and clarity is what exposes the intention she's been hiding. She was never trying to connect with you. She was trying to control the dynamic. Once you stop feeding the insecurity she's been cultivating, the mask slips, and you finally see that the transparency she offered was never honesty. It was manipulation disguised as casual conversation. Number 3, your effort keeps increasing while her appreciation keeps shrinking. This is the stage where most men lose themselves without realizing it. You start strong, planning thoughtful dates, showing up when she needs support, remembering the little things she mentions, giving consistency because that's how you express interest. At first, she responds just enough to make you feel like you're moving forward. But then, something subtle shifts. No matter what you do, it's never enough. You become more intentional. She becomes more distant. You get more thoughtful. She gets more critical. You invest emotionally. She invests in excuses. A woman who values you won't make you feel like you're running on a treadmill, moving constantly but getting nowhere. But a woman who's playing you will keep shifting the target 1 week. She wants you to be more spontaneous, so you adjust. The next week, she wants someone more emotionally available, so you open up. Then she tells you the timing is wrong, or she's confused, or not sure what she wants. Notice the pattern. It's a moving finish line designed to make you chase an outcome she never intended to give. The reality is harsh but simple. She doesn't want a solution. She wants the power that comes from watching you try, as long as you're working to win her over. She doesn't have to give anything back. You become the emotional safety net, dependable, comforting, reliable. She doesn't have to commit to you because your presence is guaranteed whether she shows up or not. And the more you try, the more she withholds. Not because you're lacking, but because your effort threatens the imbalance she benefits from. This dynamic chips away at your self-worth. You start believing you're not enough, when the truth is, she's not looking for enough. She's looking for control. She needs you slightly uncertain, slightly insecure, slightly off balance. That's how she keeps the upper hand. She wants the boyfriend energy without the boyfriend responsibility. Your consistency becomes her convenience. Look closely at the micro behaviors. She praises you only when she senses you're slipping away. She criticizes you when you show enthusiasm. She pulls you close when she's lonely and pushes you away when you get too real. Her appreciation is rationed. Her disappointment is unlimited. A woman who wants you doesn't operate like this. If she wanted you, your presence would be enough. If she doesn't, no effort will ever fix it. The real test is withdrawal, not addition. Pull back, not to punish her, but to stop exhausting yourself. When the chase ends, the truth surfaces. A woman who values you will meet you where you are. A woman who's using you will complain, manipulate, or disappear. And either way, you finally get your answer. Number 4. Her inconsistency is not confusion. It's a calculated way to control the rhythm of your emotions. Men often misinterpret this dynamic as mixed feelings or emotional complexity. But there's nothing complex about what she's doing. She warms up just enough to pull you closer, then cools down just enough to keep you guessing. It's the emotional version of tightening and loosening a leash. Not enough pressure to make you walk away, but enough to remind you who holds the tension. She texts you non-stop for 2 days, then disappears for 3. She tells you she misses you, then avoids making plans. She flirts heavily at night, then acts distant the next morning. And every time you think you understand her, she shifts again. That shift isn't accidental. It keeps you in a state where you can't predict her next move, which makes you focus on her even more. This cycle works because your mind becomes addicted to the uncertainty. The human brain is wired to chase intermittent rewards. Unpredictable highs hit harder than consistent ones. She learned that a long time ago. Every warm message, every soft glance, every moment of attention is followed by silence or withdrawal. The contrast creates an emotional spike inside you, one you confuse with chemistry. It isn't chemistry, it's conditioning. And here's the part most men never see. She only becomes consistent when she senses you pulling away. That's when she suddenly remembers to compliment you, to initiate conversations, to bring back the version of herself that hooked you in the first place. The moment you lean in again, she goes cold. It's not moodiness, it's not stress, it's not timing, it's strategy, because inconsistency keeps her in control. You make the mistake of searching for a reason. Was she tired? Did you say something wrong? Is she overwhelmed? Did she need space? But the moment you start diagnosing her behavior, you fall deeper into the trap. She wants you analyzing her, not analyzing the pattern. If you focus on the moment, she controls the narrative. If you focus on the pattern, the truth becomes obvious. Real interest is consistent. Fake interest is chaotic. Women know exactly what they're doing when they send mixed signals. Even the confused ones understand the power of uncertainty. No woman accidentally keeps someone emotionally hooked for weeks or months. When she cares, she shows it. When she doesn't, she lets inconsistency do the dirty work. The test is clarity. Stop reacting to the warm moments and start measuring the overall rhythm. Does she match your effort? Do her actions align with her words? Does she show up consistently or only when she senses distance? When you stop chasing the highs and start evaluating the pattern, the illusion dissolves. And what felt like chemistry reveals itself for what it always was: control disguised as confusion. Number 5. She's never available for you, but she's always available for what she needs from you. This is one of the clearest signs a woman is taking you for granted, yet it's the one men excuse the most. She tells you she's overwhelmed with work, drained from life, exhausted, busy, stressed, an endless rotation of reasons why she can't make plans right now. But somehow that same woman has the time and energy to post selfies, update stories, go out with friends, binge entire shows, and stay active everywhere except with you. She's not actually busy, she's selective. When a woman wants you, she makes room. When she doesn't, she gives you what's left. And in this case, that's almost nothing. She doesn't disappear entirely because she still wants access to your comfort and your attention. So instead of cutting you off, she maintains a thin thread of connection. Just enough for you to stay available, not enough for you to feel valued. That's why she resurfaces only when she needs something. When she wants emotional comfort, she calls you. When she needs a favor, she texts you. When she's lonely, she shows affection. When her ego dips, she sends a "miss you" message out of nowhere. But the moment you try to reciprocate and ask for time, presence, or effort, she slips behind the same wall of excuses. She knows you'll accept the scraps because you've been conditioned to think her sudden moments of warmth mean she secretly cares. They don't. They mean she wants to withdraw from your emotional bank account without making a single deposit. Look at the micro patterns. She leaves you unseen, but replies instantly to the things that benefit her. She cancels on you last minute, but never cancels the plans that excite her. She leans on you emotionally after disappearing for days, expecting you to be exactly where she left you. And the worst part? You've started normalizing it. You've convinced yourself that her inconsistent presence is still better than losing her completely. That mindset is exactly what keeps you trapped. A woman who values you doesn't treat you like an emotional convenience store, open when she needs something, closed when you ask for reciprocation. Her availability reflects her interest. Her presence reflects her intention. Her effort reflects her respect. The test is simple and revealing. Go silent. Stop volunteering your time. Stop offering emotional labor. Stop making yourself accessible on demand. When you remove the comfort she's been taking from you, her response will tell you everything. If she disappears, you were never chosen. If she suddenly reaches out, she's reacting to the loss of control, not a surge of genuine affection. The moment you stop giving, you'll know exactly who she was. Walking away from a woman who's been playing you isn't difficult because she's special. It's difficult because she activated parts of you that haven't been acknowledged in years. The addiction to her attention, the hope that she might finally choose you, the fantasy version of her that you've built in your mind. Those are the real chains. And most men stay longer than they should, because they're not fighting her. They're fighting their own attachment to the potential she represented. You hold on because you've already invested time, energy, emotion. You tell yourself you're close to something meaningful. That if you stay patient, if you adjust, if you show her a little more understanding, she'll eventually meet you halfway. That's the sunk cost fallacy disguised as loyalty. You're not staying because she's worth it. You're staying because it's painful to admit that you misread her. The only way out is to shift your mindset. You're not walking away from her. You're walking away from the version of yourself that tolerated the bare minimum. You're walking away from your own weakness, not from a woman who was never fully there. Start with emotional detachment. Stop analyzing her actions. Stop replaying her mixed signals. Stop trying to decode behavior that was designed to confuse you. Treat her distance as an answer, not a puzzle. When you detach emotionally, you stop responding to the hooks she throws out to keep you orbiting her. Then draw a real boundary through silence. Not silence as punishment, but silence as clarity. The moment you stop offering unlimited access to your time and your emotional availability, the dynamic flips. She loses her leverage. And you regain the power she's been siphoning from you. Stop giving her the validation she didn't earn. Every compliment, every reassuring message, every attempt to prove your worth was feeding her ego, not building a relationship. Cut the supply. Redirect that energy back into your own life, your health, your work, your goals, your masculine foundation. When your focus shifts inward, the emotional fog lifts. This is where everything changes. The moment you stop chasing, you stop bleeding self-respect. The moment you stop giving, you stop being used. The moment you stop trying to win her, you realize she was never the prize. You were. You don't lose the woman. You lose the illusion she sold you. And that is the moment you finally take your power back. You've seen the pattern now, the flirtation without depth, the mentions of other men meant to keep you competing, the endless effort she absorbs without appreciation, the hot and cold rhythm that keeps you chasing clarity she never intends to give, the selective availability that reveals exactly where you stand in her priorities. None of these signs happen by accident. They form a blueprint, one that belongs to a woman who treats connection like a game and your attention like a resource. When you step back and look at the full picture, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. A woman who wants something real will never leave you guessing. She won't weaponize her warmth. She won't destabilize your confidence to raise her value. She won't keep you around for comfort while offering nothing substantial in return. Men only tolerate these dynamics when they're blinded by hope, chemistry, or the fear of losing the version of her they created in their minds. But every moment, you accept inconsistency. You teach her that she can access your loyalty without giving anything back. You deserve better than emotional scraps. You deserve someone who shows up with intention, not confusion. Someone who matches your effort, not drains it. Someone who values your presence instead of exploiting your availability. And the moment you recognize even one of these signs, you owe it to yourself to stop negotiating with someone who refuses to choose you. Waiting for all five to line up is how men waste years of their lives on women who never had the capacity to love them in the first place. So take a hard look at your situation. Ask yourself the question most men avoid. Are you being loved or are you being used? Are you in a relationship or are you filling an emotional gap for someone who disappears the moment she's satisfied? Your answer is the beginning of your freedom. If this opened your eyes, stay here with me. Subscribe so you don't fall into the same trap again. Like the video, if it hit somewhere you've been afraid to confront, share it with the men in your life who need to hear what you finally understand. And speak up in the comments. Your clarity might be the wake-up call another man needs. You're not here to be chosen. You're here to choose. And the moment you act like it, the game ends. Most men don't realize they're being used until it's too late. They think they're building a connection, when in reality, they're being fed sweet little lies designed to keep them on standby. If you've ever felt like you're giving more than you're getting, or you've wondered why she keeps you close but never fully chooses you, she's not confused. She's playing a role. And there are 9 specific lies women tell when they want your time, your attention, and your energy, without giving you commitment, respect, or loyalty. Once you recognize these 9 lies, you'll never fall for them again. You'll see her intentions clearly. You'll stop being the backup plan, and you'll finally take your power back. Let me show you the truth behind every one of them. There's a reason these lies work so well. They're not random, and they're not accidental. Each one comes from a deeper instinct most women won't admit, and once you understand that instinct, everything about their behavior suddenly aligns. You'll start noticing details you've never seen before. Tiny cues, emotional shifts, the exact moment her intention changes. That's the power of understanding the pattern. If you want to hear the truths most people avoid, like this video and subscribe. Now let's unravel the first lie and show you what's been operating underneath the surface. Number 1. I'm over my ex. When a woman tells you she's over her ex, most men want to believe it. It sounds clean, easy, and convenient. But from the perspective of a woman who has watched this pattern play out more times than she can count, let me tell you something you won't hear anywhere else. A woman only says she's over him when she's still fighting the feelings she hasn't dealt with. That sentence is not closure. It's a shield. Women hate emotional emptiness. They fear that hollow space that opens up after a breakup. So instead of sitting with the discomfort, they reach for the closest warm body who can soften the fall. That body is often yours. You become the emotional cushion, someone who fills the silence, someone who listens, someone who makes her feel wanted again. But here's the part men ignore. You weren't chosen because of your value. You were chosen because you were available. So pay attention to the signs she can't hide. If she keeps bringing him up, even in negative ways, he still holds power. If she sends vague, sad quotes after arguments, that's not expression. That's unresolved attachment leaking through. If she's warm one moment and distant the next, you're not building something real. You're being used to soothe her swings. And here's the truth you need to hear. If her ex is still living in her head, you won't have a home in her future. Your job isn't to heal what another man broke. Your job is to recognize when you're being pulled into someone else's emotional debris. Ask yourself one question. Is she investing in you, or is she borrowing your presence to quiet the noise in her own mind? You're not a distraction. You're not a bandage. And you were never meant to be the painkiller for a wound you didn't create. Number 2. We don't need labels. When a woman tells you she doesn't want labels, she isn't trying to create a romantic, free-spirited love story. She's creating a safety net, one where she gets full access to you without giving you anything solid in return. And yes, I'm going to say it plainly because most men refuse to see it. No labels is never about protecting the relationship. It's about protecting her options. Think about what she does, not what she says. She lets you pick her up, take her out, be her emotional support, act like a boyfriend in every way that benefits her. But the moment you ask the simplest, most reasonable question, what are we? She smiles and hides behind that soft, careful excuse. Why ruin what we have by labeling it? That line isn't wisdom. It's strategy. Women use the gray zone to stay in control. As long as nothing is defined, she can edit her involvement at any time. She can pull you close when she needs validation, and then push you away the moment another man catches her attention. She keeps you warm, but she keeps her escape route warmer. Here's the part you need to absorb without flinching. If she wanted you, she would claim you. When she avoids labels, she's avoiding you. A woman who sees you as her man doesn't fear commitment. She fears losing you. She deletes her dating apps. She stops entertaining other men. She doesn't dodge clarity. She invites it. So what should you do? Set a timeline, not as an ultimatum, but as a standard. If we're going to act like a couple, it needs to become one. And if she still refuses clarity, then you stop giving her the privileges of a girlfriend. In love, ambiguity always favors the person who's less invested. Don't let that be you. Number 3. You're different from other guys. This line is pure sugar, and that's exactly why men fall for it. Every man wants to feel chosen. Every man wants to believe he stands out. And women know this, intimately. When a woman tells you you're different, she's tapping straight into the part of you that craves significance. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If she truly felt that way, she wouldn't need to say it. You would see it in her actions. Women use this line as ego bait. A soft nudge to make you lean in a little closer, try a little harder, chase a little more. It gives you a high, a dopamine hit that feels like connection, but is really just validation dressed up as intimacy. It's a reward without commitment and a promise without effort. Pay attention to the contrast most men ignore. She compliments you, but she flakes on plans. She tells you you're unlike anyone she's ever met, but she disappears for days. She insists you're special, yet shows up only when it fits her convenience. That's not admiration. That's strategy. And here's the truth you need to stop running from. If you were really different, she wouldn't have to say it. You'd feel it. From a woman's perspective, this line is a lever. It lets her control the pace of the connection without giving you anything real. She knows men chase harder when they believe they're winning. She knows you'll forgive inconsistency if you feel chosen. So she feeds your ego just enough to keep you hooked. Don't fall for the words. Look at the investment. Look at the consistency. Look at the effort she makes when she doesn't need attention or comfort. If the words and actions don't match, don't chase harder. Step back. The woman who truly sees your value won't flatter you into staying. She'll show you through presence, not performance. Number 4, I don't care about money. When a woman tells you she doesn't care about money, she usually says it at the exact moment your card is already sliding across the table. It's a comforting statement for a man to hear, almost noble. You want to believe she's with you for who you are, not what you can provide. But from a woman who has watched other women play this game for years, let me be brutally transparent. The women who claim they don't care about money often care the most. Watch her behavior, not her branding. She lights up at 5-star restaurants, but goes dull at the suggestion of a simple walk in the park. She's always in the mood for rooftop cocktails, but mysteriously exhausted when you propose something low-key. She never offers to split, even symbolically, because in her mind, that's your role, not hers. She wants the lifestyle, the image, the access, the experience, and you're the one funding the highlight reel. Some women don't want a man. They want an upgrade. Here's the truth that separates a woman who values you from a woman who values your wallet. A woman who genuinely doesn't care about money never chooses based on who pays. She chooses based on who stays. A woman who is with you for you will show it in subtle but powerful ways. She'll suggest budget-friendly dates. She'll offer to cover small things, coffee, snacks, a ride share, not because she needs to, but because she wants to contribute. She'll match your effort with her own, not sit back waiting for the next luxury you're willing to hand her. So test the dynamic. Suggest a simple date. Watch how quickly her enthusiasm shifts. If stripping away the glamour makes her lose interest, then she wasn't interested in you at all. And remember, a woman who only shows up when you're spending is a woman who's spending you. Number 5. I don't usually do this. When a woman tells you she doesn't usually do this, she wants you to feel like you've unlocked some rare, hidden version of her. It's a seductive illusion, one designed to make you believe you're the exception, not the pattern. But here's what most men don't realize. This line is a script, a carefully crafted performance to lower your guard and speed up your trust. Women know exactly how powerful it is to make a man feel chosen. They know that if you think you're the one who brings out a special side of her, you'll relax your boundaries, give more freely, and stop questioning the pace of the connection. Suddenly, something that should take time happens too quickly. Intimacy, favors, emotional closeness, and you convince yourself it's organic, not strategic. But look at her behavior. If she says it with confidence instead of nervousness, that's not vulnerability, it's delivery. If she uses the line right after you spend money, offer help, or give her attention, that's not honesty, it's reward. And if she says it early, often, or conveniently, she's not revealing her innocence. She's manufacturing your comfort. Here's the truth you need to sit with. Women who truly don't usually do this don't announce it. You feel it in their hesitation, their awkward laughter, their genuine shyness. Authentic vulnerability is quiet. Manipulation is polished. So what should you do? Slow the pace. Observe. Notice whether her actions match the supposed exception she's claiming. Does she deepen the connection afterward, or does she pull back once she gets what she wants? Does she show real emotional depth, or just enough softness to hook you? A woman who wants you will be honest with you. A woman who wants something from you will perform innocence like it's a practiced role. Don't fall for the script. Look for the sincerity behind it. Number 6. I just need space, but I don't want to lose you. When a woman says she needs space, most men hear honesty. They assume she's overwhelmed, stressed, or simply figuring herself out. And maybe part of that is true. But the second half of her sentence, but I don't want to lose you, that's where the manipulation sits. Because what she really wants isn't distance. What she wants is control. Women use space to explore options without fully letting go of the comfort you provide. It's a bench strategy. You're not in the game, but you're not allowed to leave the stadium either. She wants the freedom to see who else might show up, while making sure you're still there if things don't work out the way she hopes. Look at her behavior, and everything becomes clear. She says she needs time, but still texts you whenever she's bored or lonely. She says she needs distance, but still expects you to answer her calls. She says she's sorting through her feelings, yet you'll see her posting subtle hints meant for another man. She's not confused. She's keeping her options open. And here's the truth you've been avoiding. Space without boundaries is not space. It's a strategy. From a woman's perspective, this line keeps you emotionally available while she emotionally checks out. She knows you're loyal. She knows you're patient. And she knows you're hoping that giving her time will make her choose you. But what it actually does is make her feel safe enough to drift further away. So what should you do? Make the boundaries explicit. If she needs space, she gets real space. No daily calls, no comfort on demand, no emotional labor. And if she refuses to set a timeline, you set one for yourself by stepping back altogether. You are not her backup. You are not her bench player. If she wanted you, she wouldn't risk losing you in the first place. Number 7. You deserve someone more amazing than me. When a woman tells you this, it sounds gentle, even noble. Men hear humility. They hear vulnerability. They hear a woman who feels unworthy of them. But from the perspective of a woman who understands what sits beneath this line, let me translate it for you. This isn't humility. It's an exit wrapped in flattery. It's rejection dipped in sugar, so it goes down smooth. Women say this when they want distance without the guilt that comes with directly turning a man down. They don't want to look like the bad person. They don't want confrontation. And they definitely don't want to lose the benefits of your presence, your support, your attention, your emotional availability, while they quietly search for someone who excites them more. Watch the pattern. She calls you an amazing guy, but she doesn't choose you. She says you're husband material, but she keeps you in the maybe later category. She praises your kindness, but she saves her effort, her time, and her desire for someone else. Those aren't mixed signals. That's deliberate ambiguity. And here's the truth you must stop running from. If she thought you were amazing for her, she would choose you, not excuse you. From a woman's point of view, this line protects her ego and preserves yours, just enough to keep you orbiting. It keeps the door cracked open so she can slip back in if her other plans fall apart. She wants the option of you without the responsibility of you. So what should you do? Believe her. Not because she's right about your worth, but because she's telling you she doesn't want to be the woman who stands beside you. Don't argue. Don't convince. Don't prove anything. Step back, reclaim your energy, and leave her to the choices she's already made. You don't win a woman by waiting. You win by walking away from the ones who hesitate. Number 8. You just get me. When a woman tells you this, it feels intimate. It feels meaningful. It feels like you've unlocked a part of her no one else can reach. But here's the truth from a woman who has watched countless men fall into this trap. You just get me rarely means she wants you. More often, it means she wants a place to drop her emotional baggage without offering anything real in return. Women love to feel understood. It makes them feel safe, validated, seen. But the mistake men make is assuming emotional closeness equals romantic interest. It doesn't. A woman can unload her trauma on you, share her insecurities, rant about her ex, complain about her co-worker, and still have zero desire to be with you. In fact, the more she vents without giving anything back, the more likely it is you've been placed into a role she won't acknowledge out loud. The emotional tampon. Look at the signs she won't verbalize. She sends you long texts about her bad day, but never asks about yours. She trusts you with her secrets, but never invites you on a real date. She calls you when she's falling apart, but never when she's excited to see you. She gives you emotional intimacy while withholding physical or romantic intimacy, because she wants comfort, not connection. And here's the truth you need to swallow whole. You're not her safe place. You're her emotional storage unit. Women can separate emotional reliance from romantic attraction with surgical precision. She'll keep you close enough to soothe her loneliness, but far enough to never owe you anything. That's not affection. That's convenience. So what should you do? Stop playing therapist. Stop responding instantly. Stop offering support she hasn't earned. If she wants a man, she'll move toward you. If she only wants relief, she'll drain you. A woman who truly values you won't only share her pain, she'll invest in your life, your joy, and your time. Number 9. I'm not ready for a relationship right now. When a woman says she's not ready for a relationship, most men take it at face value. They assume she needs healing, or time, or space to figure herself out. But here's the reality from a woman who has lived long enough to see this play out repeatedly. Not ready doesn't mean she isn't ready for love. It means she isn't ready with you. Women don't delay relationships with men they're truly drawn to. When she meets a man she feels chemistry with, emotionally, physically, mentally, she doesn't need time. She doesn't need clarity. She doesn't need to work on herself. She jumps. She chooses. She invests. She shows up. So why does she tell you she's not ready? Because she wants the benefits of your presence without the responsibility of commitment. You become the emotional comfort, the convenient companion, the reliable support system. While she keeps her heart open for the man she's actually waiting for, look at her behavior. She still texts you when she's bored. She still asks for favors. She still enjoys your company. But mention exclusivity, and suddenly she gets vague. Bring up commitment, and she becomes foggy. Ask what she wants, and she offers philosophical answers that mean nothing but keep you hopeful. She's not confused. She's buying time. And here's the truth you need to hear without sugarcoating. She's ready the moment the man she truly wants appears. So what should you do? Stop acting like her boyfriend when she refuses to treat you like her man. Pull back your energy. Invest proportionally to the clarity she gives you. When she says she's not ready, take her at her word. Not because she's honest, but because she's telling you exactly where you stand. A man with self-respect doesn't wait in someone else's emotional lobby. He walks out and chooses himself. When you look at all 9 sweet lies together, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. These aren't random phrases women throw around without meaning. They're signals. They're strategies. They're soft, polished ways to take what they want while giving as little as possible. And if you've heard even one of them more than once, it's not because you're unlucky. It's because you've been dealing with a woman who never truly intended to choose you. But here's the part I want you to sit with. Not as judgment, but as clarity. You can't control what a woman says. You can only control what you accept. Most men stay stuck because they cling to the words instead of watching the behavior. They cling to potential instead of reality. They cling to hope instead of respect. And that's how good men get drained, bit by bit, excuse by excuse, sweet lie by sweet lie. So let me reframe this in the most honest way a woman can. You don't lose women by having standards. You lose the women who plan to use you. And those aren't losses. Those are escapes. Think about the version of you who's been overextending, giving time, attention, effort, loyalty to someone who would never match it. Think about the energy you've poured into women who kept you waiting, wandering, second-guessing yourself. Now imagine what happens when you stop accepting breadcrumbs and start demanding consistency. When you stop falling for sweetness and start listening to truth. When you choose clarity over confusion every single time. If this hits something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment so other men know they're not alone. Like the video if it opened your eyes. Subscribe if you're done being the easy target. And share this with a man who's stuck in the same cycle you just broke. You deserve honesty. You deserve loyalty. You deserve a woman who shows up, fully, consistently, willingly. And I'm here to make sure you never settle for less again. She texts you when she's bored. She disappears when you're available. She keeps you close enough to give her attention, but never close enough to choose you. And the worst part? You feel it. That quiet humiliation of being kept instead of wanted. Of being an option, not a priority. Let me be very clear with you. She's not confused. She's not figuring things out. She knows exactly where you stand in her life. The real problem isn't that you're not good enough. It's that you're playing the wrong role in her world, and she's benefiting from it. Today, I'm going to show you 5 ways to stop letting a woman treat you like an option, and more importantly, how to shift your position so this pattern never repeats again. I'm speaking to you as a woman who understands how women think, how attraction actually works, and why certain men get stuck in this painful position without realizing how they got there. This isn't about manipulation, and it's not about turning into someone you're not. It's about changing the power dynamic, quietly, decisively, and permanently. If you've ever felt sidelined, overlooked, or emotionally kept on standby, this conversation is for you. Before we go deeper, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Because what I'm about to break down will change how you see relationships from this point forward. She didn't forget your value. She sorted it. That's the part most men struggle to accept because it sounds colder than the truth they want. But as a woman, I need you to hear this clearly. When a woman treats you like an option, it's not confusion, it's classification. Women constantly organize the men in their lives into emotional categories, not consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively. And when you land in the option category, it's because you serve a function without creating pressure. You regulate her ego. You provide attention when she needs it. You're safe, familiar, and reliably available. That's the first mechanism at play. Ego regulation. When her confidence dips, when the man she wants isn't giving her reassurance, she reaches for the person who always answers. Not because she misses him, but because he stabilizes how she feels about herself. The second mechanism is attention backup. In modern dating, attention is currency, and backup attention is insurance. You're the policy she keeps active, so she never has to sit with silence, uncertainty, or rejection for too long. Then there's mate switching. In an environment where options feel endless, women don't choose until they feel compelled to. And nothing kills that urgency faster than a man who is always ready, always waiting, always emotionally on standby. So she keeps you close, but never close enough. You don't challenge her comfort. You don't force a decision. You don't make her risk losing you. And because of that, she never has to choose. This is where most men misread the situation. They think consistency will be rewarded. They believe patience equals maturity. They assume availability signals security. From a female perspective, it often signals the opposite. Because desire doesn't grow where there's no tension. Respect doesn't form where access is guaranteed. And attraction doesn't deepen when a man centers his emotional availability around a woman who hasn't earned it. Here's the uncomfortable truth you need to sit with. A man who is always available is rarely selected. Not because he lacks value, but because he never requires a decision. When you're easy to keep, you're easy not to choose. Number 1. Stop explaining your worth. Most men don't realize this is where they start losing power. Not when she pulls away, not when she takes longer to reply, but when they feel the urge to explain themselves. You explain because you want to be understood. You explain because you want fairness. You explain because you believe that if she truly saw your intentions, your loyalty, your effort, she would treat you differently. That instinct feels honest. It feels mature. It feels right. From a woman's perspective, it often reads very differently. When a man explains his value, it doesn't sound like clarity. It sounds like insecurity. Not because he lacks worth, but because he's trying to convince someone who hasn't asked to be convinced. Here's what most women experience in those moments. A long message, emotional detail, carefully chosen words meant to create connection. And what registers instead is pressure, emotional weight. A quiet shift in dynamics where the man is now seeking validation instead of embodying certainty. Attraction doesn't respond to monologues. Respect doesn't rise because someone made a good case for themselves. You are not a presentation. You are not a pitch. And your value is not something that needs to be packaged and sold. The moment you start explaining why you matter, you hand over leverage. You move from being observed to being evaluated. And once that happens, the power dynamic tilts away from you. This is why explanations rarely change behavior. They might produce temporary reassurance, longer replies, softer words, but not real investment. Because attention can be given without respect. Comfort can exist without commitment. Every explanation quietly tells her the same thing. I'm still here, even if you don't choose me. And that's the habit you have to break. The shift happens when you stop trying to be understood and start letting your actions speak in silence. When you don't rush to clarify your intentions. When you don't defend your position. When you don't chase emotional resolution. You let your standards do the talking. You let your presence become conditional. You let space replace speeches. And something changes. Not because she suddenly understands you better, but because you finally stop negotiating your worth. A man who knows his value doesn't explain it. He demonstrates it through what he allows and what he quietly withdraws from. When you stop explaining, you don't lose connection. You lose the illusion that talking was ever the solution. Here's where many men relapse, right after they swear they're done explaining. She sends a long message. She replies with warmth. She asks a question that feels personal. And suddenly, hope sneaks back in. From your side, it feels like progress. From hers, it's often just attention management. You need to understand this distinction clearly. Attention is not value, and responsiveness is not investment. Women can give attention without emotional risk. They can engage, flirt, even open up slightly without ever changing how they see you. Because attention costs nothing. Commitment does. Let me give you a scenario I see all the time. She goes quiet for days. You pull back. Then she returns with a thoughtful message, maybe even an apology. Your nervous system relaxes. You think, she gets it now. But what actually happened is simpler. She felt the absence of your attention and reached out to restore it. Not because she chose you, but because she noticed you stepping away. That's the difference most men miss. When a woman values you, she moves toward consistency. When she values your attention, she moves just enough to keep it accessible. Long texts don't mean depth. Fast replies don't mean priority. Emotional tone doesn't equal emotional commitment. What matters is pattern, not moment. if she engages only when you pull back, if warmth appears only when access feels threatened, if closeness never turns into clarity, then you're not being chosen, you're being managed. And here's the truth that stings, but frees you. If someone has to be nudged into recognizing your value, they're not overlooking it. They're opting out of it. They're making a choice that keeps their comfort intact. This is why chasing attention is such a dangerous trap. It conditions you to mistake reaction for intention. It keeps you emotionally invested in crumbs instead of standards. When you stop measuring progress by messages and start measuring it by behavior, the fog lifts. You stop asking, "Is she interested?" and start asking, "Is this consistent?" And once you see that clearly, you don't need reassurance anymore. You need alignment. Because real value isn't proven by how much attention someone gives you. It's revealed by how much access they're willing to earn. Number 2. Boundaries are action, not warnings. This is where many men believe they're doing the right thing, while quietly sabotaging themselves. They talk about boundaries. They explain what they won't tolerate. They express disappointment, frustration, even hurt. But when the behavior repeats, nothing changes. From a woman's perspective, that doesn't look like strength. It looks like flexibility disguised as standards. Here's the truth most people avoid. A boundary without consequence is not a boundary. It's a suggestion. And suggestions don't shape behavior. Outcomes do. Women don't respond to what you say you deserve. They respond to what you consistently enforce. Not because they're cruel, but because human beings adapt to the rules of access they're given. This is where fear enters the picture. Men hesitate to enforce boundaries because they're afraid of losing her. Afraid that if they pull back, she'll walk away. Afraid that standing firm will end the connection for good. And sometimes, it will. But what's worse than someone leaving when you draw a line is someone staying while slowly eroding your self-respect. When you allow disrespect once, it sets a precedent. When you allow it twice, it becomes permission. And by the third time, it's the relationship. This is why boundaries must be behavioral, not verbal. When someone disrespects your time, you don't argue about it. You remove your time. When effort drops, you don't negotiate for more. You reduce access. When consistency disappears, you don't chase clarity. You step back into alignment. That's not punishment. That's self-regulation. From a female psychological standpoint, this is where respect either forms or disappears. A man who enforces boundaries without anger, without drama, without explanation, communicates something powerful. My presence is conditional on how I'm treated. And here's the part that surprises many men. The women who are capable of real connection don't test boundaries. They recognize them and adjust. The ones who push, poke, and cross lines are revealing exactly why those boundaries are necessary. This is the shift you need to make. Stop trying to be understood and start being consistent. Because the moment your actions match your standards, the dynamic changes. Either she rises to meet them or she removes herself. And both outcomes restore your power. A woman who truly respects you will never need to be reminded where the line is. She'll feel it. Number 3, refocus on your goals. This is where the real power shift begins, because nothing pulls a man out of the option category faster than reclaiming his direction. Distraction doesn't ruin men overnight. It erodes them slowly. One unanswered message, one delayed reply, one night spent replaying conversations instead of moving forward. And before you realize it, your emotional state is reacting to her behavior instead of being anchored in your purpose. From the outside, it looks harmless. From the inside, it's devastating. The moment your schedule revolves around her availability, you've already lost leverage. When your mood rises and falls based on whether she texts back, she's no longer just part of your life. She's controlling its rhythm. From a woman's perspective, this is immediately felt. Not logically, but viscerally. A man without direction feels emotionally heavy. He feels absorbent instead of grounded. And no matter how kind or consistent he is, that lack of internal focus quietly lowers his position. Here's what many men don't want to hear. Attraction grows toward motion, toward clarity, toward a man who is building something that doesn't pause for uncertainty. A man with goals doesn't chase alignment. He attracts it. That doesn't mean working non-stop or pretending not to care. It means structuring your life so your time, energy, and attention are invested forward, not upward, towards someone who hasn't committed. Set a target that demands discipline. Create a daily structure that doesn't bend for emotional fluctuation. Replace motivation with consistency. Because motivation fades, but systems don't. When your focus shifts back to your growth, something subtle but powerful happens. You stop monitoring her reactions. You stop waiting. You stop interpreting silence as meaning. And she feels that shift. Not because you announced it. Not because you threatened to leave. But because your energy is no longer available on demand. A man who is deeply engaged in his own progress doesn't need to withdraw attention intentionally. His attention becomes scarce naturally. And scarcity, earned through purpose, not manipulation, is what moves you out of the option space entirely. Because a man who is busy building his life doesn't have room to be treated like a backup. Number 4. Choose growth over closure. Closure feels mature. It sounds healthy. It convinces you that one last conversation will finally set you free. But from a psychological standpoint, closure is often just attachment, wearing a cleaner mask. Men chase closure because they want their pain to be acknowledged. They want the confusion to make sense. They want to hear something, anything, that confirms the effort they gave wasn't wasted. Here's what I need you to understand from a woman's perspective. When someone consistently treats you like an option, they already gave you their answer. Not with words, but with behavior. And behavior doesn't need clarification. The urge for closure keeps you emotionally tethered. It keeps you replaying moments, rereading messages, imagining explanations that would soften the reality. But explanations don't heal wounds caused by patterns. They just delay acceptance. This is the part that's hard to hear. The person who caused the damage is rarely capable of providing the repair. Not because they're evil, but because they benefited from the dynamic exactly as it was. If she wanted to choose you, she would have. If she valued consistency, she would have shown it. If she feared losing you, you would have felt it. From a female psychological lens, clarity isn't delivered through conversation. It's revealed through distance. Space removes distortion. Absence exposes truth. This is where growth enters. Growth doesn't ask why. Growth asks, what now? When you stop chasing explanations and redirect that energy into yourself, your habits, your structure, your standards, your nervous system starts to recalibrate. You regain emotional balance, not because you understand her better, but because you're no longer orienting your life around her decisions. Distance gives clarity. Growth gives power. And here's the shift most men underestimate. When you choose growth over closure, you exit the loop entirely. You stop waiting for permission to move on. You stop hoping for validation from someone who already demonstrated their priorities. Closure keeps you facing backward. Growth turns you forward. One keeps you tied to her version of events. The other puts you back in control of your own. You don't need her explanation to heal. You need momentum. You need alignment. You need to outgrow the version of yourself that needed answers from someone who never chose you. Because once you grow past the situation, closure becomes irrelevant. Number 5. Walk away without drama. This is the moment most men get wrong, not because they don't want to leave, but because they want to leave and be understood. They want the last word. They want their pain acknowledged. They want her to finally realize what she lost. And that desire quietly hands the power right back to her. From a woman's perspective, drama doesn't signal strength. It signals emotional entanglement. The more explanation, emotion, and intensity you attach to your exit, the more it confirms that she still has access to you. Walking away without drama is different. It's not cold. It's not cruel. It's controlled. This is where ego and self-respect split paths. Ego wants to be seen. Self-respect wants peace. When you disappear calmly, without speeches, without ultimatums, without emotional outbursts, something very specific happens psychologically. She doesn't feel abandoned. She feels cut off. Not from affection, but from access. And that's what creates impact. Women don't feel loss when love disappears. They feel loss when availability does. This is an important distinction. Love can fade slowly. Access disappears instantly. And when it does, the dynamic flips. Not because you planned it, but because you finally stopped offering yourself to a situation that wasn't choosing you. Now let's be clear about something. This is not ghosting. Ghosting is avoidance. Protection is intentional. You're not trying to punish her. You're not trying to teach her a lesson. You're choosing to remove your time and energy from a space where they weren't respected. Silence in this context is not a tactic. It's alignment. When you walk away quietly, you send a message without saying a word. I know my value, and I don't negotiate it. That message lands far deeper than any explanation ever could. And whether she reflects, regrets, or replaces you is no longer your concern. Because the moment you leave without drama, you stop performing for her understanding and start answering to yourself. Here's the truth that closes this chapter. Silence is not a weapon against her. It's loyalty to yourself. And a man who can walk away with calm certainty is no longer an option. He's already moved beyond the game. This is where everything comes together, not as a tactic, but as an identity shift. At this point, you need to understand something crucial. You were never meant to handle her. You were meant to change the version of yourself that tolerated being handled. When a man focuses on fixing the situation, he stays trapped inside it. When he focuses on becoming someone with standards, the situation either rises or disappears. That's the difference between being an option and being a standard. A standard doesn't chase. A standard doesn't explain. A standard doesn't negotiate its worth. When you become that man, the rules change automatically. Not because you demand better treatment, but because you no longer participate in dynamics that require you to ask for it. This is the part that feels uncomfortable at first. Some women will pull away, some connections will fade, and that's not loss, it's filtration. You're no longer available to people who only thrived when you were overgiving, over-explaining, and undervaluing yourself. Here's what most men don't realize. You don't lose her when you step into your standard. You lose the version of the relationship that required you to shrink. And in return, you get something far more valuable. You get yourself back. You stop waking up wondering where you stand. You stop monitoring tone, timing, and signals. You stop needing reassurance to feel steady. Because your identity no longer depends on being chosen. From a woman's perspective, this shift is unmistakable. A man who knows his boundaries, protects his time, and moves with quiet certainty occupies a completely different psychological space. He's not auditioning, he's evaluating. And that's the moment the dynamic flips. Not every woman will qualify for access to this version of you. And that's exactly the point. You were never meant to be universally available. You were meant to be selective, grounded, self-directed. You didn't lose her. You outgrew the role that kept you optional. And once you step into that identity, you don't need to protect your position anymore, because being a standard speaks for itself. If you think back to the beginning of this conversation, it probably started with a familiar feeling, the uncertainty, the waiting, the quiet frustration of giving more than you were getting, being kept close but never chosen, available but never prioritized. And now you can see the truth clearly. You were never lacking value. You were lacking leverage. The moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you enforce boundaries without emotion, the moment your focus returns to your goals instead of her reactions, the moment you choose growth over answers and silence over drama, you stop being an option. A man with direction doesn't beg to be chosen. A man with standards doesn't argue for respect. A man with discipline doesn't stay where he's tolerated instead of valued. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming grounded. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need permission. You don't need to be picked. When your life is built around purpose, structure, and self-respect, the dynamic shifts naturally. Some people won't follow you into that version of yourself. And that's not failure. That's alignment. You didn't lose her. You lost the version of yourself that accepted being optional, and that's the real win. If this message hit closer to home than you expected, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Like this video so it reaches the men who need to hear it. And leave a comment below. Something simple, something honest. Right. I choose self-respect. Because the moment you choose yourself, everything else rearranges around that decision. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You're choosing who gets access to you. And that's where your power begins. If you've ever felt like a woman slowly stopped respecting you and you couldn't explain when it started, this video is about you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Women don't accidentally walk all over men. They only do it when a man never set boundaries early enough to stop it. In the first stages of dating, there are 5 boundaries that determine whether she sees you as a man she respects or a man she slowly takes for granted. Miss even one, and you'll spend months confused, overgiving, and wondering why the dynamic flipped. This isn't about being harsh. It's not about playing games. And it's definitely not about controlling women. It's about understanding the exact moments where men unknowingly give away leverage and how to stop doing that before attraction turns into tolerance. If you don't learn these 5 boundaries early, you won't just lose her respect. You'll lose yourself trying to get it back. Most dating advice teaches men how to react. This video teaches you how to position yourself so you don't have to react at all. The difference isn't confidence or charisma, it's structure. Boundaries create structure, and structure determines who leads the dynamic and who adapts to it. If you're ready to shift from guessing to understanding, like the video and subscribe now. Because once you see how these dynamics actually form, you stop chasing outcomes and start controlling your own position. And that shift begins with the very first boundary most men ignore. Let's break that open. Number 1. Never open financial access before she's earned it. Men confuse sharing with bonding. You think talking about money is just conversation. You think you're being transparent, relaxed, authentic. But that's not how it lands on the other side of the table. To a woman, early financial information is not intimacy. It's data. The moment you talk about your income, your investments, the cost of your car, the trips you're planning, something subtle but irreversible happens. You stop being a man she's discovering, and you start being a man she's measuring. Not emotionally, practically. This is what I call the provider audition. She hasn't chosen you yet. She hasn't committed. She hasn't invested. But you're already standing on stage, proving your usefulness. And the dangerous part is that you usually don't even notice it happening. You mention your salary casually. You joke about a bonus. You talk about how much you've saved this year. You think you're just making conversation. But in her mind, a quiet assessment begins. Stability, capacity, access. From that point on, attraction stops being emotional and starts becoming evaluative. Here's the truth most men don't want to hear. Once a woman starts evaluating your wallet, she stops feeling you. Curiosity turns into calculation. Tension turns into expectation. And no, She doesn't need to ask you for money for this shift to happen. All she has to do is observe how freely you expose it, how eager you are to signal that you can provide, how quickly you turn your financial life into proof of worth. Men do this because they were taught that providing equals value, that security equals desirability. But early on, provision doesn't create attraction. It replaces it. You're no longer the man she wants. You're the man she's seeing what she can get from. That's why this boundary matters so early. Because once the frame changes, you don't get it back. You can't talk your way out of being evaluated. You can't charm your way back into mystery. The moment she starts evaluating your wallet, attraction stops being emotional. It becomes transactional. When you step in too early and start solving her financial problems, something critical shifts, and it's not in your favor. You don't become her partner. You become her support system. That's the role downgrade most men never see coming. The moment you say, "I got you," before there's commitment, you silently volunteer for responsibility without authority. You give provision without position. And once that happens, the dynamic hardens. She may appreciate you, but appreciation is not desire. Gratitude is not attraction. This is where the financial tests begin. They're subtle. She mentions how tight things have been lately. A bill she's stressed about. A car issue that's expensive to fix. She's not asking outright. She's watching. She's watching how quickly you move. She's watching if you feel compelled to rescue. She's watching whether your boundaries collapse the moment pressure appears. Most men fail here because they confuse generosity with leadership. They rush in, thinking it proves value. In reality, it proves predictability. And predictable men are easy to place into utility roles. The correct boundary doesn't require speeches or defensiveness. You don't justify. You don't over-explain. You don't apologize. You stay calm. You stay grounded. You close the door without slamming it. Something simple, supportive, but firm. No offer, no guilt, no entanglement. And here's the part that surprises men. A woman who is genuinely interested will respect this immediately. Not because she's testing you less, but because she feels safer with a man who protects his structure. A woman with unclear intentions will feel irritated. She may pull back. She may lose interest. That's not a loss. That's filtration. This boundary doesn't push women away. It filters out the ones who were never there for you, only for what you could provide. Leadership begins where access is controlled. Number 2, never tolerate disrespect, especially when it's subtle. Most men think disrespect looks loud. Raised voices, insults, obvious hostility. That's why they miss it when it actually matters. Because real disrespect doesn't announce itself. It sneaks in quietly and waits to see if you'll stop it. It shows up when she interrupts you mid-sentence and keeps talking. When she makes a passive joke at your expense and follows it with, "Relax, I'm just teasing." When she casually compares you to her ex. When she ignores your messages for hours but expects instant replies from you. None of these moments feel big enough to confront. And that's exactly why they work. From a psychological standpoint, this isn't cruelty, it's evaluation. She's asking one silent question. Can I get away with this? Women test boundaries the same way water tests cracks. Slowly, incrementally. One small push at a time. If nothing pushes back, the pressure increases. Here's a scenario most men recognize but rarely address. You're out with her and a few friends. Everyone's laughing, talking. Then someone asks how things are going between you two. She smirks and says something like, "He's fine," when he's not being clueless. Her friends laugh. She laughs too. You smile. You tell yourself it's harmless, that she didn't mean it like that. But something just happened. She lowered your status in public. She used you as a moment of entertainment. And more importantly, she watched what you did next. Disrespect tests aren't about the comment. They're about your response. Or lack of one. When you let it slide, you're not being easygoing. You're signaling that your self-respect is negotiable. That comfort matters more to you than boundaries. And once a woman realizes she can step over you without consequence, she will. Not because she's malicious, but because you showed her the line doesn't exist. Silence is not composure. Silence is consent. That's the mistake men make when they convince themselves that staying quiet makes them look calm, mature, unbothered. In reality, what you're communicating is much simpler and much more damaging. You're telling her that this behavior is allowed. When you don't respond to subtle disrespect, you don't freeze the moment. You set a precedent, and precedents compound. One small pass turns into another, then another, until the dynamic has shifted so far that fixing it feels impossible. Here's the chain reaction most men never anticipate. When she disrespects you publicly and you let it slide, her friends notice. They don't see you as easygoing. They see you as the man who doesn't stand up for himself. Their perception changes first, then hers follows. Because once a woman sees that you'll tolerate being diminished in front of others, she learns she can do it privately too. The tone shifts, the effort drops, the attraction erodes. Not overnight, but permanently. High-value men don't respond to disrespect with explosions or sarcasm. They don't embarrass her back. They don't turn it into drama. They respond immediately, calmly, directly. One short sentence, no edge, no explanation, no emotional charge, just a clear line drawn in the sand. That response does something powerful. It resets the frame. It tells her, and everyone watching, that you respect yourself enough to stop the moment it crosses a line. This isn't about controlling her behavior. It's about enforcing your standards. Because respect is not negotiated through patience. It's not earned by endurance. And it's not preserved by silence. Respect is enforced. Number 3, never make your time freely available just because you like her. This is where most men sabotage themselves before the relationship even has a chance to form. You think availability shows interest. You think saying yes quickly proves enthusiasm. You think rearranging your schedule makes you look invested. From her side, it looks very different. When a man is always available, it doesn't signal desire. It signals a lack of structure. And women don't evaluate men in isolation. They evaluate the life that surrounds him. Here's the pattern. You meet a woman you're excited about. The chemistry feels good. The attention feels promising. And because you don't want to miss your opportunity, you start doing something subtle but destructive. You cancel plans. You move commitments. You stay flexible, just in case, she texts. Dinner with friends disappears. Gym sessions get skipped. Your schedule becomes reactive instead of intentional. Not because you're irresponsible, but because you're afraid of losing momentum. That fear is what she feels. From a psychological perspective, a woman isn't just asking, does he like me? She's asking, does this man have a life that can hold me without collapsing? When your time becomes an open buffet, she doesn't feel chosen. She feels prioritized at the expense of everything else. And paradoxically, that lowers attraction. Men believe scarcity pushes women away. In reality, the absence of structure pushes them away faster. A man who drops everything the moment she appears doesn't look committed. He looks unanchored. And women don't trust men who have nothing anchoring them. This boundary isn't about playing hard to get. It's about protecting the foundation of your life, because when your time loses value, you do too. A man who treats his time like currency is always in demand. Not because he's unavailable, not because he's playing games, but because his life already has direction before she ever steps into it. When you protect your schedule, something powerful happens in her mind. She stops seeing you as an option she can summon and starts seeing you as a man she has to meet halfway. Time creates anticipation when it's not on demand. That's the part most men misunderstand. They think saying no kills momentum. In reality, it sharpens it. When you don't jump every time she reaches out, you signal self-control. And self-control is one of the strongest indicators of maturity. Here's what this looks like in real life. She texts late. She wants to see you spontaneously. But you have an early morning, a workout, a commitment you already made. The low-value move is to abandon your plans and rush over, hoping it proves interest. The grounded move is simple. Calm. No explanation spiral. You acknowledge her, but you don't rearrange your life to accommodate an impulse. That response does two things at once. It shows that your time matters, and it makes the time you do give her feel intentional, not convenient. There's an important distinction here. Being busy isn't attractive. Purpose is. A man with purpose doesn't need to fake scarcity. His schedule reflects priorities. His life has momentum, and women feel that difference immediately. When your time is protected, attraction has space to grow. When your time is unlimited, attraction suffocates. You don't win by being constantly present. You win by being consistently grounded. Number 4, never become her emotional dumping ground before she commits. This is one of the most seductive traps men fall into because it disguises itself as connection. She opens up early, talks about her ex, the trauma, the chaos, family drama, how every man before you hurt her. She cries on the phone, tells you she's never felt this understood, and you think, this must mean something. It feels intimate. It feels special. It feels like you're different. But emotional dumping is not intimacy. It's recruitment. What's actually happening is simple. She's testing how much emotional labor you're willing to carry before she gives you anything real in return. And most men volunteer without realizing the cost. You listen for hours. You reassure. You stay up late calming her down. You give advice. You absorb her emotional weight. You become steady, reliable, safe. And slowly, quietly, the frame shifts. You're no longer the man she desires. You're the man she stabilizes herself with. Here's the part that hurts the most. Men mistake emotional access for emotional bonding. They think, she trusts me. What they don't see is that trust without investment doesn't create attraction. It creates utility. She leans on you, then turns around and gives her excitement, her curiosity, her unpredictability to someone else. Not because you did something wrong, but because you stepped into the role of therapist instead of partner. Masculine polarity dies the moment you become her emotional container too early. Mystery fades, tension dissolves, desire flattens, and you can't argue your way out of that position. Once you're emotionally categorized as the safe one, it sticks. This boundary isn't about being cold, it's about pacing intimacy. Because when you carry her emotional weight before she chooses you, you're giving away your strongest leverage. Emotional closeness is powerful, but only when it's mutual, only when it's earned. Emotional intimacy is currency, and like any currency, it loses value when it's handed out without investment. Here's the distinction most men never learn. You can be present without being responsible. You can listen without carrying. You can care without collapsing into her emotional world. The mistake isn't empathy. The mistake is overextension. When you rush to absorb her pain, fix her wounds, and stabilize her emotions before there's commitment, you reverse the natural flow of bonding. She doesn't grow closer to the man who carries her. She grows closer to the man she invests in. That's how emotional attachment actually forms. Healthy emotional pacing looks different. You listen, you acknowledge, you stay grounded. But you don't dive into problem-solving mode. You don't become the late-night crisis line. You don't let her emotional storms dictate your availability or identity. This boundary protects masculine polarity. Polarity exists when there's tension, space, and mutual effort. It dies when one person becomes the emotional anchor while the other drifts freely. Men often think pulling back emotionally makes them seem uncaring. In reality, it makes the connection cleaner. It invites reciprocity. It gives her the opportunity to step forward emotionally instead of leaning back into you. And that's the key shift. A woman bonds with the man she invests in emotionally, not the one who carries her emotional weight for free. When she has to show up, when she has to contribute, when she has to regulate herself, attraction deepens naturally. This boundary doesn't block intimacy. It preserves it. Because intimacy that isn't earned doesn't build desire. It builds dependence. And dependence is the opposite of attraction. Number 5. Never panic when she pulls back. This is the moment where most men undo everything they did right before. Things were good. The energy was there. The connection felt mutual. Then something shifts. Her replies slow down. The warmth fades. The effort drops. And instead of staying grounded, you panic. That panic is instinctive. You feel the distance and assume something is wrong. Maybe she's stressed. Maybe you said something wrong. Maybe there's someone else. And without realizing it, you start doing the one thing guaranteed to kill attraction. You try harder while she does less. It usually unfolds in 3 predictable mistakes. First, you fill the silence. She creates space, and you rush to close it. More messages. Faster replies. Extra check-ins. What you're really saying is, I'm uncomfortable without your attention. Second, you try to reassure her. You offer emotional availability on demand. You let her know you're there for anything. Every word quietly communicates fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of the connection slipping away. Third, you overcompensate. You plan more, compliment more, give more. You turn the volume up, hoping effort will restore what distance removed. But attraction doesn't work that way. From a power dynamic perspective, the moment you increase effort in response to withdrawal, the balance shifts. She holds the frame, you chase it. And once that imbalance locks in, desire suffocates. A woman cannot miss a man who is constantly trying to close the gap. She can only miss what has space to disappear. Pulling back is not always a test. Sometimes it's clarity forming. Sometimes it's interest fading. And sometimes it's simply life. But panic turns every possibility into the same outcome. Loss of leverage, loss of attraction, loss of self-respect. Attraction never returns because you try harder. It returns when there's absence. That's the paradox most men resist, because it feels counterintuitive. You were taught that effort fixes problems, that persistence proves value, that if you just show up more, love will stabilize. But romantic attraction doesn't respond to effort. It responds to space. When you stop rewarding distance with increased attention, one of 2 things happens, and both outcomes work in your favor. If she's genuinely interested, she recalibrates. She notices the absence. The imbalance corrects itself. Her effort rises to meet yours. Consistency returns, not because you chased it, but because you gave it room to surface. If she doesn't come back, then the truth was already there. Your boundary didn't cause the loss. It revealed it faster. This is where men get stuck emotionally. They think, if I pull back, I'll lose her. What they don't see is that they were already losing themselves trying to keep her close. Never reward distance with effort. Effort given in response to withdrawal trains imbalance. It teaches her that she can reduce investment while you increase it. And once that lesson is learned, attraction doesn't recover. Absence does something effort never can. It restores polarity. It returns control to your side of the equation. It reminds her that access to you is not guaranteed. And if she chooses not to step forward when space is created, then you didn't lose a woman who wanted you. You stopped chasing an illusion that required you to abandon your grounding. That's the quiet power of this boundary. It doesn't manipulate outcomes, it clarifies them. You didn't lose her. You stopped chasing what was never fully yours. What you've just learned isn't a collection of dating tips. It's a system. 5 boundaries, 1 framework, 1 purpose, protecting your value before someone else decides what it's worth. These boundaries are not about controlling women. They're not about manipulation. And they're definitely not about turning cold or disconnected. They exist for one reason only: to keep you from losing yourself while trying to keep someone else. When you control financial access, you protect leverage. When you shut down disrespect early, you protect dignity. When you guard your time, you protect direction. When you pace emotional intimacy, you protect polarity. When you stop chasing withdrawal, you protect self-respect. Together, they form a filter. Women who are drawn to structure, strength, and self-control will feel safer with you. Women who were only comfortable when you were overgiving, over-available, and over-invested will quietly disappear. That's not loneliness, that's clarity. Boundaries don't make you harder to love. They make it possible for the right person to love you without you shrinking to earn it. They ensure that when a woman chooses you, she's choosing the man you actually are, not the version that sacrifices himself to be tolerated. And if there's one truth I want you to walk away with, it's this: you don't gain power by demanding more from women. You gain power by requiring more from yourself. If this resonated, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe. Stay here. This channel exists for men who are done being confused, drained, and second-guessing their worth. Like the video. Share it with the man who keeps giving too much and getting less. And leave a comment. Tell me which boundary hit you the hardest. This channel isn't here to comfort you. It's here to keep you